It's now 2 o'clock and I'd like to call a meeting of the Pelican Preserve Advisory Committee to order. We need a roll call.
You need, the Pledge of Allegiance comes first.
Okay, so you're the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm sorry.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You can do the roll.
Roll call.
Ellen, here. Bill, here.
Peggy here.
John Greggett here.
Randy Bottleson here.
Sharon here. Laura's here too.
Any public comments?
I do have one, from Carol Panca. It's a mystery comment. She didn't say what it was. It says public comment, so she didn't tell me what it.
Hi, guys. Used to be one of your members here. Back last year, I had brought up the topic of attempting to sell the two monument properties at Colonial and Tree Line, the Colonial Tree Line intersection. And I wanted to just use the public comment time to kind of brief you on what's happened. We have gotten a legal opinion from the district's attorney, Tony Pierce, that this GSCDD does own those two properties, fee simple, so there's no covenants or easements or anything on them, and that they can be sold. But these two properties were part of a group of other properties that there was a bond issue for. And there is money still owed on that bond issue, about $1,750,000. So now the ball is in the court of the bond council district to determine if those properties can be sold or not, or if there are restrictions on it or not. So it's in the hands of legal counsel again. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thanks.
I do not have any other people signed up to make public comment.
No other signing, public comments? Anybody from,
No one signed up, so that's it. We're done with those.
they can't just.
Nope, they have to sign up. I don't have any other sheets.
Approval of the minutes. Any corrections?
I had sent in a couple of very minor corrections
I saw that.
that I don't think we need to discuss. I move that we approve the minutes with the small corrections that were made to them.
I'll second that.
I second it.
Any discussion? Take a vote.
Aye.
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 It is approved unanimously. Financial report.
Well, I don't have a lot to report today, and I think things have changed considerably since even last month. And I talked to Laura a while ago again that I won't be doing the financials in the future. Like she said, there's only two elected positions here, and that's the chair and the assistant chair. There is no treasurer. And so Laura will be doing the financial report, dealing with the district, and Jennifer Lewis, thank God, I give her a lot of credit. She's gone through a lot in order to come up with all the data for her part of the HOA budget. Unfortunately, Castle didn't leave us any information about the October and November expenses, and so she's had to dig up a lot of that, and then she put it together with what they spent in December through KW. And so I can give those figures, but maybe we'll just let Jennifer do that. And it's changed anyway. It's changed from the format that I had. I tried to separate it out as to how much we were spending on security, how much we're spending on landscape, and that sort of stuff. KW has a different reporting system. And I'll let her go through that, explain it all. But it appears that from here on through, I'm just gonna be sitting here taking a nap like the rest of you folks, so.
Jen, are you
I can go
prepared to?
first if you'd like,
Yeah.
if that helps. If you're not ready, Jen.
Can you get up to the,
Yeah, if you wanna, you could send those to me going forward and I can just put them with mine and then we can get them the agenda. Or you wanna just send them to me?
That Jennifer Lewis. I do have the final total. December, and in the format, we're just breaking it down the way that you have it, administrative expense. Tax and then first. So it'll look a little bit different than how Castle had it. Do have, I mean, I have the, over to December total. Administrative expenses. $1,300. Utilities. $1,307.82. Contracts were $418.17, and maintenance and repair total for the 3 months of $31,585.97, for total expenditures of $58,766.92 for October, November, and December.
Jen, does that include anything from the hurricane or everything?
I think a lot of that is hurricane stuff. There is a lot of hurricane cleanups on one of I think the October and November were pretty heavy packets with landscaping cleanup.
I would suggest that maybe at our next meeting, we should have a summary that we get in advance of the
Sure.
total year,
Yep.
so we can see how that came out.
Yep, and Alan has what my figures that I sent. So the report that he used to use is how we went ahead, we did that with the variance and the percentages. And so we submitted these numbers so that he had those, so.
I might make a suggestion, and you and I can get together on this, but it helps to have what percentage of the budget is left.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that if we've gone through 3 months, how much is left? And so it's a very easy thing that you can put into a spreadsheet. I'd be glad to sit down with you. We
So
can
it
go
looks
over
like
that.
the only 14.2% expense so far
Yeah.
from the overall budget for the year. Thank you.
I did this is from the district's financials. So this is actually from our Procurify system, which is where your purchase orders live. So this is broken out basically into, I don't have the safety and security. They have this line right here, the roads and sidewalk. They can spend things off of that budget from your 002 fund, but otherwise the second chunk here is all landscape. The bottom part is ponds. And then these things up here, you really don't have a lot of control over. Like this is your security contract. You can't control your light bills, your irrigation, those things. But the attorney fees, engineering fees, the road and sidewalk, and then there's just other miscellaneous that's in there. So these reports will be changing most likely in April. Our target go live for our new accounting system is the middle of March. And so I'll be able to I can build my own reports. So I can build these to look however you guys would like to see them going forward, but I'm really limited for like the next 6 weeks until I can get in there to do that. So what I did also is, because we did not report on your financials for December last month, I took this from the financials that we get from Infomark. And this is your tax, the money they collect from the property taxes. That's why this is so high and then so low. You can see it shifted from there to your money market account. So this is December, January. Here's where your reserves are at. Oh, I'm sorry. Have to turn the TV on. Takes a minute. This is what happens when Georgia lets me set up. Just saying.
We do appreciate Georgia.
She got everything over here and then it was my responsibility to set everything up. So that was me. Okay, so here's where we're at. Again, this top line here, this was the tax. So that's why that shifted down, just because they couldn't see it before. And here's where your reserves are at. And you can see this is where we took the money and moved it from your capital to your unassigned. We had that discussion at the PPAC meeting last month. So you can see that that did happen in January after your meeting last month. And I would take suggestions for how you want to see them differently. I just figured, I know you guys like to see where your stuff sits, and then this is just a rough
Laura,
idea of where we're at.
Could you go back as to what our, what the assessments are compared to what our expenses are?
I don't have that.
You don't have that?
No.
Okay. Want to know our revenue.
Well, your revenue will equal your expenses. That's how we
Yes, right,
figure out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying, I should have said, yeah, so revenue, well, will equal expenses, but it'll be good to see how it compares.
Sure. We're a third of the way into the year now, so
Mhm.
got 1 quarter down, or 4 months in.
So we have, if I'm reading this correctly, we have $1.3 million in unassigned,
Actually,
last
right
figure?
here, you have 2.8 million.
2.8.
This is the
Oh,
change
okay,
from
that's the
January,
difference,
from
okay.
December, or the end of December to the end of January. This is the change.
Okay,
So-
that
It
changed.
seems to me you were.
So here's where
concerned.
you can see the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
concerned.
so you can see here that move that you requested to have the stuff taken for the boardwalk from capital moved to your regular reserves, that actually did that, or the unassigned did happen. That was that $524,250 for the boardwalk, and the engineering expenses. We moved those.
In the end, were we able to move the engineering expenses over?
Yeah, that was both.
did.
That was the boardwalk and the engineering.
Okay.
That makes me feel better.
Better numbers.
Have you seen the money though?
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Sriga for the PPCA. I know at the end of last year, while we were going through the budget process, there was a suggestion that we gave to the landscape working group to put aside $300,000 to do upgrades to the main drag through Pelican Preserve and our front entrance. I think that was approved, if I remember what happened at that meeting, but I don't see that landscaping reserve appearing on the list. So that would have been, set aside for that activity. There's no, that, I know it was agreed to at the meeting.
That is correct.
Yeah,
I just don't see.
We
it.
didn't set up a separate reserve for the landscaping.
So is the plan still in place to do that? Because I spoke to the chairperson of the landscape working group this morning, and he isn't aware that he's got the authority to proceed.
and in fact, there was also an additional 150,000.
Yeah,
There was 300 and 150.
Yeah, for different things. Absolutely right,
Right.
Phil. Thank you.
What was that for?
Hmm?
50.
It's a total.
this is the 150, I think, is in this one here, because that was 153,000 for the tree trimming. Let me go back and check and make sure that the transfers happen, because you wouldn't see that in a reserve account. That would actually reflect here. It would come out of your regular unassigned reserves. And there would be a line item in here to cover the expenses that they were gonna spend that on. Because if I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and look at my notes. There were 2 line items that they were gonna take money from reserves to fund for landscape stuff.
Yeah,
But we didn't want to include those in the budget until after it was adopted and the assessments were done, because you already had the money and we didn't want to assess people on dollars that you already had. So that was why they're not
Yeah,
in the
I
budget.
thought
I have to check my notes for the move. I do remember.
the plan was
Yeah,
that
I'll
the
make sure that
LWG was gonna come back to the committee with a plan to spend that money, but that money was earmarked and set aside. So
All
it
right,
would
Mark
support-
has a comment. Mark, did you want to say something?
Oh, there you go, Mark. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were there.
My recollection.
You gotta state your name and your,
Mark Eversman, Pelican Preserve, Portofino. There was 150,000 set aside 2 years ago to redo the 2 roundabouts, one outside Carino, one outside Pistoia. That money has not been spent, but it was set aside at that time. Joe Schofield was still here. He was asked for a number. He threw out 150. As I understand, the board said, all right, we'll agree to that. And then Scott Charnock and I came last fall, and we said, Scott did a presentation. He said, according to Ameriscape's rough calculations, maybe 300,000. The board again said, yes, we agree to that. But as I understand, the money does not actually get taken out It is just informally set aside until we have a reason for it, and then it comes out of the reserves. So the landscape committee has not requested those funds as of right now.
One last, yes, Bob, you have to stay ready. The other influencing factor in all this, because I agree with Bill completely and Mark, but if you recall, we didn't have a landscape group until January. So that was one of the stumbling blocks of getting these monies put in the right hole. We now have a group. It's been recognized and blessed by everybody. So this should be direction as they go forward. But that was part of the problem.
And we are not looking for those funds as of yet until we can get the maps done that tell us exactly what we're responsible for. So we're not redoing areas that technically we shouldn't be doing it. So we're still waiting on the maps.
Mark, could you just review what this entire packet was? This was all landscaping with pictures and estimates and so forth, and I thought that was a extended plan that was going to be implemented.
Scott Charnot asked for.
Randy, move the mic up a little bit so that it's. Oh,
And Scott Charnot asked Ameriscape to come up with something. So Ameriscape came up with this. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but it was something to work off of where we actually had a contractor give us some
It was a
guesstimates.
placeholder.
So it was just something for us to work off of. This is not what we're going to do. We want to take another hard look at it, and Ameriscape, in my opinion, was going to put in far more than what I would recommend. But it was a starting point to at least give us an idea of what we may be faced with in the future.
Okay, so is that going to be just set aside,
Yeah.
ignored?
Yes.
I got all these phantom accounts and phantom projects.
Yeah.
Mark, one thing,
Oh.
why don't you give them your credentials, which I think are very impressive, so that they know.
Tell me what you find so impressive, John. I have a degree in horticulture from the University of Illinois, and I have a degree in mechanical engineering. I've worked in a nursery, and I help people in Pelican Preserve
For many
all over
years.
Pelican, so. And the board that I've got, the subcommittee that I've got a person who worked in an arboretum, I've got a person who owned a commercial landscaping company, and two other very good candidates, so I'm pretty happy with the people that stepped up for the subcommittee, so.
Thank you.
Mark, can you just clarify? You said 2 roundabouts. One was in Karina, and where was the other one?
The other one is out Pistoia.
From the financial part of it, then Laura, you can probably help out here. It concerns me a little bit if we've earmarked $450,000 for landscaping, but it's just sitting out there someplace.
It stayed in the reserve account until it was ready to be used. Because that's what'll happen if
Well,
we don't
which
use it, that's when
reserve
it'll go
account?
back. It's in the unassigned.
Yeah, so we really don't have 2.8 sitting in there then, so we.
We
have-
do.
Well, we have it sitting there, but we're still, I guess, haven't been brought up to date on the fact that 450,000, that's already gone. That's what I'm trying to say. Somehow or other needs to be notes taken that says that, yeah, we've got we've got commitments already for.
I don't remember the amount
Or-
being that high, but I'm gonna go back and check my
Yeah.
notes from when we were budgeting.
Somehow or other, we need to show commitments for that money, so
I
we
agree.
know.
I agree.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments regarding landscaping? Go to item 7. First one is PPAC new member selection recommendations. I think we have 2 members that put in that request. They're both here too. Let's give them an opportunity to go up to the mic and introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, Marty Mantonfeld from Monticello. So I find myself here again, asking for a chair at the table. I think the last time I was here, there were 2 other candidates selected. So I'm asking you for a seat at the table again. I'm a mechanical engineer. I think I told you last time, I used to boil water for a living. I made electricity. Uh, just a lot of water. So, I am too concerned about certain things that came up at the previous meeting. Bill brought up the matter of security. Security is an important factor in Pelican Preserve. I know we have a lot of the wall that's down, but also part of security, which falls, I think, on the Board of Supervisors, is lighting. And I know there are a lot of lights down from the hurricane that still have not been replaced. FP&L came around, and if they couldn't fix something right away, what they did was they opened up the transformer, disconnected the wires from the transformer, and removed the light altogether, and then put an orange cone above the hole that was left in the ground. So that's an area of concern. So I think there are areas that we can address for security, giving our security people the tools that they need. I know that they don't have the power to arrest. They just drive around in a community patrol, but there are tools that we can give them. For instance, is a GoPro camera, so they can record what they see and not just be a witness. And I'm looking forward to coming up with new ideas and being a member of the board, if you'll have me.
I do want to make a clarification because security has come up quite a bit during this. The security guards, the security company that we hired is not hired to be a security company. They were hired for gate access.
For gate access?
Gate access. They're controlling access to the community.
Are we paying gas for that car?
We are.
Then why? If they're only hired for gate access?
That's their main focus is they're there not for security. It's for privacy. I forgot what the wording is. It came up during the meeting. Just clarifying.
So if they're hired for gate access, why?
And also the golf course, the town center and
Right, I'm
RV
not here to
storage are not
what
part of their.
they're hired to
company,
do.
So
That's what we have a subcommittee to
Yep.
do. And maybe they
I
can.
just know that's been a point of contention, so I want to make sure that we're not bringing things up here that don't fall under the purview of this committee.
That's fine. Are there any questions for me? I'm here as
I
a
think you have
full-time
great
resident.
credentials.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
You said you're here full time?
I am here full-time.
All right, thank you.
Couldn't stand worrying about a house 1,500 miles away if a nor'easter hit. And then I get the story from my daughter that there's good news and bad news. The bad news is a tree fell through the roof. What's the good news? The rain stopped. So,
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
all right, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Munson. I live in Casella, bought there in 2016. I've been full-time in Pelican Preserve since a little over 3 years ago. I truly love living in Pelican Preserve. I love the beauty and the vibe that the community has. I'm interested very much into helping to commit to improving that and keeping what we have in Pelican Preserve. I spent 36 years with Quaker Oats as a project manager. So I think I can help the team to move projects forward and help to assist. I would like the opportunity to be able to assist you and be part of the team. Any questions?
So you said you have project management background and it looks like you had management background as well.
Correct.
And did you manage budgets within
Budgets,
Okay.
people, projects,
the whole
took
shebang?
an idea through the commercialization process and brought it to the marketplace.
And what's your opinion on rolled oats versus steel cuts?
I prefer rolled, however, it's the exact same oat, just going in two different processes.
Very personal.
Disqualified, like steel cut.
We have.
Tomato,
all kinds
tomato.
here.
Anything else?
Any questions from the audience at all?
Thank you.
Thank you. You have very good candidates that always apply for PPAC. It's always very difficult to, I think, make decisions. Are we ready for, now, do we vote?
Yep.
To vote,
With-
We need to vote.
Do they,
Yeah, you have to vote because you have to.
We have
pick
to
one.
recommend these people to the board.
well, that's what I mean. We,
Well, you have two candidates.
Yeah.
So, what we did last time is we just went around the table and each member stated who they would like to vote for.
Yeah.
Since we only have two. Last time we had a big list, so it was a little more difficult. Yeah. So. Guess start. It's up to you. I'd just start with Alan.
Well, they're both great candidates and it's hard for me to say one over the other one, to be quite honest with you. But I guess I'm gonna vote for Marty because he's been here before and he showed some real interest in being here, previously, and nothing against Mike, but, that's who I'm voting for.
Bill?
I feel the same way Alan does. Very difficult choice. Credentials are great for. I've talked to a few people in the community. Not that anybody had anything bad to say about.
Please slide your microphone over in front of your face.
Anything bad to say about either of them, but I would, I think I'd vote for Mike at this point.
All right, Peggy?
Well, I echo exactly what they said. You guys are both extremely qualified. I do have a bias towards project management, so I'm gonna go with Mike.
All right, John?
Again, it's tough decisions, but, Marty has expressed interest in a couple times here, so at this time, I'd like to vote for Marty, but there'll be openings. Please come back. You do have great credentials.
All right, Randy?
And I will vote for Marty.
Sharon? This will give you how you got 6 members, so it's very possible we're gonna have to vote more than once, so.
Man, well, I mean, it's hard to decide when you don't really know a person very well, but just look at a piece of paper and credentials and things. I guess I'd probably vote for Mike.
So we have a tie, so we need to
Oh.
revote.
Sorry.
Or the chairperson can override it. It's up to you guys, if you want to revote or if you want to just leave the decision up to John. But we
Leave
do
the
not
dec-
have a
I'm sorry,
unanimous
Leave the
vote.
decision up to,
The chair.
no, I'm not.
Or we
gonna-
can just revote, because you have a tie. It's 3-3.
Would either of you like to come up and give any additional information as to why you want to become a member of PPAC? I think that would be helpful in us trying to make another decision.
Ray Mantonfeld from Monticello. One of the reasons that I want to get involved is I'm a member of the Monticello Landscape Committee already. I'm already a member of the Pelican Preserve Architectural Control Committee, so I'm getting involved that way. I know there are different aspects that this committee gets has involvement in throughout Pelican Preserve to make it a better community, and I'm looking for more involvement to put forth my time and effort to make the community better.
And you also said that you've been here how long again?
I purchased my house in April of 2017, and I've been here full-time resident since August of 2020. Right before the election.
Thank you.
Mike Munson again. Like Marty said, I was also here last meeting and when we had the openings last time to apply for the meetings as well. So the interest that there piqued for me, trying to understand what was going on in this committee. I love the infrastructure of Pelican Preserve. I like the way the infrastructure works. I like to dig into construction projects and see how they go along. One of my passions. Last 2 years I've been managing my golf group and part of the NGA board. And that's been great and fun, but it really hasn't helped me dig into Pelican Preserve and the inner workings of that. And I'm very interested in doing that. One of the things that as a project ends, you get to celebrate as it goes through. You get to fight and talk and discuss. And those are all things that I enjoy doing.
Are you a full-time resident?
I am. I've been full-time for the last little over 3 years, August 19.
Making sure we're comparing everything evenly.
Yeah.
If you like to fight, this is the group to come to.
And not only that, we have people in the audience who help us.
Perfect.
Yeah, the main board.
Can I,
Maybe I missed it, Mike, but are you on any other committees or any other?
I am not. I said, the last few years I've been focused within our golf group and the NGA and have not got involved in the community as of yet. And that's
Okay.
something I
thank you.
really want to do.
Thank you.
have you ever attended a CDD meeting?
I have not.
I should ask you, have you ever attended the CDD meetings? Okay, I think that's very important, to get a feel for the CDD, how we, I don't want to say could make suggestions to the CDD, but the overall impact of the fact that Pelican Preserve and this committee really doesn't control Pelican Preserve. It's the Board of Supervisors
Understood.
who have Gateway as well. And we're very fortunate now that we have a couple people on the CDD that are from Pelican Preserve. That isn't always the case.
Correct.
And it's not that easy to, you have to communicate with them and
Yep.
sometimes fight with them, but fortunately, we have a couple good people on the board now.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our candidates? We need another vote, don't we?
Yep, I'll start over here. I'll let Sharon go
Thank
first
you.
this time.
Both have really nice things to say that you really want to help and you want to participate and be part of us. I guess I'll for Marty.
Randy?
I want to thank you both for attending and throwing your hat in the ring. I think you both got great credentials and we certainly do appreciate your interest in participating. I will also cast my vote for Marty.
All right, John, I'm gonna skip you. Peggy? We'll let you go last.
So despite my bias for project management, I think Marty has convinced me that he is the appropriate person at this time. Join us.
All right, Phil?
I think the person who doesn't get selected, there will be lots of other opportunities within the community. There are lots of things we need done, so I would encourage you to sign up and I will vote for Marty as well.
So you really don't need my vote then?
I do. We have to, everybody has to vote, but go ahead.
I'll vote for Marty.
I'll make
John.
it unanimous, I guess.
All right. Thank you, Mike. I don't envy you guys. That was a really hard decision. And thank you both for stepping up. And there'll be other opportunities, even if it's not necessarily on PPAC. There might be one of the subcommittees or there's gonna be opportunities in Gateway as a whole. And Pelican residents are available to participate in the Gateway services because you get assessed. So keep your eye open, look for some other opportunities. We'd be happy to have you. Thank you. All right, so sick
Marty
bill.
has to get approved by the CDD.
I will take that to the meeting next week.
Next item for discussion is the Villa Circle milling and resurfacing. Do we have any comments? Nobody from the board?
It seems
I
to
don't-
me
Keith
that
is gonna
that's
come
pretty
in.
much decided, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
Keith is
We just need to approve it.
listening, so he was gonna come in.
Oh, okay.
At least I think.
So should we just take a
There
vote?
he is. I'm like, I see him online.
Uh-oh, he must be listening.
Good afternoon, I'm Keith Riddle, Public Works Director. Did you guys have a question about the agenda item specifically, or? And why is it back on here?
Right,
Yeah,
why is it back on? Didn't we vote on this already?
you did.
There were two.
So the original agenda item was for Baness Contracting, and they had not signed the contract at the time. We could not come to terms on the contract. They weren't in agreement with our terms. Our contract is a very straightforward, simple contract, but they redlined it to death. And we don't, we can't entertain changes to our attorney-approved contract. So we went to the second bidder, which is Ajax Paving.
And that's the reason for the difference in the.
There's two reasons. So Ajax when I went out originally to bid, Ajax was at 109 and change. Vanessa was at 104 and change. Then if you guys recall, the HOA had requested curb replacement. That was not in the original scope. So I went out and I met with the HOA and we drove the area and we came up with a list of areas for curb replacement. That is also in this at an additional $14,000 and change.
Keith, about a year ago, I thought I remembered that we started out with an estimate of $80,000.
Yeah, that was before
that-
my time and
that
I
the
had
money
never
that-
seen that estimate and I don't know how that all came about. So
Number I remembered, Randy, was was over 100, but I could be wrong.
But at any rate, Randy, that would,
This is where we are.
times
Okay.
Right.
price escalation's been through the roof, so.
When can they start?
Once we get approval here, it's gonna go to the board for approval next week and hopefully in March.
They've accepted all of your,
They've already signed the contract. We have not signed it pending approval.
Started riding my bike there. I keep.
I move that we approve recommending to the board that a contract be signed with it's the Ajax paving for $124,063.35 to do the work on the Villa roads.
I'll second that motion. Any other discussion? Let's take a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
you're good.
I don't think so.
Thanks, Steve.
Item C.
Kathleen Anderson, president of Yellow Circle. So did that include the repairs to the curbing?
Yeah,
Yes.
That amount?
Yes, that's what he was
Okay,
saying.
that's what I was.
that was added in.
Okay, thank you. Say one thing, Keith came out when you requested and he was there at the correct time and he was very informative. I just wanted to say that thing.
All right, item C. Cypress,
Randy.
This, I got it up there. The request is for, I think $13,000 to convert the original recommendations or drawings that were provided by Florida Transportation Engineering into documents that would be suitable to put out for bids. So the question before the committee today is, do we approve this? And at that point, I guess it would go to the Board of Supervisors, but then the documents would be turned over to the district to put out the bids.
Does this have to go to the board? Laura?
No, this is,
No,
this is
ju-
within my.
It's within
spending.
your.
Yeah, I
your
can,
approval, that's what I
yeah, it's
thought.
under my limit.
Yeah.
So
So we're approving to do this.
if you're approving to do it, I can, if you approve it, I can issue the purchase order for it.
Okay.
So I would move that we approve the $13,000 estimates to move forward with the appropriate documents.
And where is this coming from?
That
Is
was,
this on a-
thank you. That was my next question. So I would need there's a request for purchase order form that'll need to get filled out. That will direct me to where to take the money from.
so can you amend your motion to where it comes from? Set up to Randy?
I'm assuming it would come from the road and sidewalk line item, but that's just my assumption. Cause it's not up to me to decide where to take it from because it's your budget. So I will take it from wherever you direct me to take it from.
Why don't you make your motion where you want to take the money from?
I would move that we take it from the roads, the streets.
I'll second that motion. CC, you have a comment?
Is this preliminary?
Casey,
This is Cece Haas from Casella. Is this preliminary to identifying the details of what'll be a turn only and all those details? Or has that already been decided whether, there'll be a little bicycle lane or there'll be a right only going into Carina, whatever? At what stage are we in this design process?
Well, we accepted the original design recommendations. So this is to proceed with that design and get bids to accomplish those.
And that includes crosswalks and things that people keep coming to us saying, it's not safe, it's not safe. So I'm assuming it addresses all that already.
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
where can we see the design?
Laura, do we have that?
I don't have it.
Might I suggest that we go
I-
forward, that at the next meeting, Randy, you,
I still have it in my,
yeah,
Would have
Computer
been at one of the
That
safety
you-
and security meetings?
pardon?
Would it have been presented at one of the safety and security meetings? Cause I can check their files.
Well, it was presented here by Dean Groves in a previous meeting.
Yeah, it was on the table, right?
Yeah.
They have a whole
Yeah.
packet?
Yeah, so we had
Yeah.
pretty significant.
I don't
amount.
have them. I remember that. There were pictures and everything.
yeah.
So we all had that.
I wasn't here.
Nor was I. But I'm assuming if it did include all the crosswalks, walks and safety,
Yes, it included crosswalks. Essentially, the intersection does not have adequate space for two cars to travel around it at one time. So it's essentially going to be made into a one lane, and there's going to be signs. There's going to be, signs painted into the streets. There's going to be appropriate, pedestrian crosswalks. And a number of different things. We're also looking at trying to get a stop sign, I think, in that Casella area. Speed limit sign. Okay. But I have that on my computer, but I don't
Okay.
have the,
So Laura, you're saying this comes from the HOA budget?
No, this
No.
comes from your budget.
It comes from your
Roads and
budget.
sidewalks.
$40,000. Sidewalk rate.
You know where those are? Okay, in my email or the boardroom?
the projection for this
My email?
project.
HOA budget.
Hmm?
That's the.
The estimate for this project was $24,000.
Hang on, I'm gonna pull it up. I just got transferred over there.
did that 24,000 include the 13 just to get the correct formatting? Or is this on top of that?
24.
That was just the work, okay.
I don't remember.
24,000 on top of this.
Dean Groves presented it, and he's a transportation engineer.
Heath Riddle, Public Works Director, it's the 13,000.
Okay.
Yeah, we renegotiated down.
Oh.
Yeah, what started at 23.
Good job.
Perfect. Good job.
Okay.
Thumbs up.
Laura, I think there's a matter of semantics. When I said HOA, that's our budget, right? That's what it's been
Yeah.
always referred to
Okay.
is the HOA, and there is.
No, there's a, normally in the past anyway, when you guys talk about the HOA budget, that would be the things that KW pays.
Right.
And we reimburse them for.
Right.
This has got its own line in the gateway budget. There's a roads and sidewalks maintenance budget line item in that we cut the check for, which is different.
Right,
So
thank you.
this looks like a current state right here.
Like this is, sorry, I'm just trying to. I can't talk and click at the same time.
Well, they basically,
I can chew gum and walk and talk and do numbers and everything. I just can't click and concentrate on looking at that and talking about something different. Here, recommendations. So I'll start up here so you can see. If I make it smaller, so everything will, I'll scroll down. I just want to make sure that you can read this part before I go past it.
so essentially, it's going to create, a right turn lane on that,
Here,
bottom part there with
You
the
can't see it.
left, person in the left having access to go around the circle. So that's,
Yep.
it, and there's gonna
They
be
can go around
indication
the
of that to begin with, so nobody should go into that intersection driving next to another car.
Sure.
So we'll have to see how long it takes people to get trained to that. I think you can see that there are different pedestrian crosswalks that are going to be established in that, and that's been a request for
Mhm.
a lot of the neighborhoods in that area.
But there isn't one on the side towards Casella, though. There's no crosswalk.
There's
I don't see one there. I see there's one at the top, one on the left, one on the bottom, but not over here, not to the right.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can
Yep.
get there from there, but
Unless it's back farther
Yeah,
and not shown on this map.
this is still an improvement, so.
Yep. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you just have to do a,
Okay. Should we go forward with this? We got a motion, right?
I don't have it. Who made the motion? I didn't see.
Randy did.
And it was seconded. Do we have a vote?
Who seconded?
I
it?
don't
Sorry, I
think we
missed
seconded.
it.
I seconded.
Okay.
I thought.
Okay. I missed it.
Did we take a vote?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
pass unanimously. All right, item D. I think we have somebody here that would like to present some information.
Good afternoon. I'm Jack Pierce from Matarita Two, and appreciate you having me here today. We want to talk about in our entryway having pavers. We would like to have the sign on the monument changed to where it just says Matarita. Put a 2 there, please, because Matarita Two is not part of Matarita. We have our own HOA, our own board, our own budget. I can show that to you if you'd like to see it. But, you know, we're totally different. So, we could, I'd like to hand out, just some information that's not all that's in there. Laura, you want to pass?
Sure. Yeah, I need to keep one for the record. Nice paper.
So as I said, Matarita Two is not part of Matarita. And I think that's significant because I've seen people say that we're the back entrance to Matarita, but how can we be a back entrance to Matarita when we're not part of Matarita? So, and again, I think they should change the sign. Put a 2 on the end of it. It can be as simple as this right here or the number 2. I don't care. But it's really confusing to people. We try to tell them where we're at, and no, it's not that first Matarita sign. It's the second one. And also we're on Prado, and something that's significant is we're in an area where there's a 30-mile speed limit, 4-lane roads, and you get traffic flying by there pretty good. So, you know, we think that should be done. And we are a fairly big community. We have 174 homes, and we are significantly different than Matarita One. We have a, Laura, could you pull up that with the map? The attachment?
Not sure which one. This one?
Yeah, it's the one on top. Boy, that's gonna be hard for you to see. So, this is part of this. When we were buying our property and home, this is what was given to us. And this is the layout of the different communities. And it's perfectly clear that Matarita One and Matarita Two are different. The homes, for the most part, are different. In Matarita One, almost half of them are the duplex ones. And then the remaining are mainly smaller single-family homes. Whereas you get into Matarita Two, it's all single-family homes. The most of which are the Grand Villa ones. So the layout's totally different. We do have a separate entrance. We call it the entrance to Matarita Two, but it's on Migliera and Prado. And again, 4-lane road, 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. So, so I don't think there's any question that we're separate from Matarita 1, but apparently people thought we were part of Matarita, and that was one of the reasons they said they never put in pavers. So I think that was an incorrect assumption, and we would like to see that corrected. So, we also use, Gateway Utilities. It's kind of weird. Matarita uses Fort Myers other than 8 of their duplexes for some odd reason, but, anyways, but we're all, Gateway Utilities. And the thing that really got this moving was that, we, tried a couple times and to get something done about the pavers, and we were told that it wasn't in WCI's plan. So it's kind of weird. So on all the 3 main 4-lane roads, Pelican Preserve Boulevard, Cypress Grove, and Prado, we were looking at all those entrances, and the only ones that didn't have pavers were Casella, Prado, and Matarita 2. Since then, they got them in Prado. It's actually around their roundabout. That must cost a lot of money, but Lennar did that because that was in the plan. So they got them, in Prado. They have 3 roads coming off the paved roundabout, and all of them have separate monuments. So 3 monuments. So they got an awful lot. And then most recently, we were quite happy to see that Casella got pavers in their entrance, in a very similar situation as ours, in that, that wasn't in the plan, right? But, Gateway decided to put them in Casella, which is the right decision. So if you look at all those 3 main roads, we are the only one that doesn't have pavers. And, we're not asking for preferential treatment. We just, think it's fair and the right thing to do. We're also a little concerned about, not a little, a lot concerned about, when you go out of our entryway, the view is obstructed when the traffic coming from the Prado neighborhood. If you don't pull all the way out into the crosswalk, you can't see the oncoming traffic because of the landscaping. There's a big berm out there. It's, now with the dirt, the surface is raised, the dirt, and then plantings on top of it. A lot of caluches, which get big. Out there, I'd say they're probably 8 feet, and then the berm. So you got about 12 feet sticking up in the air. I think we're the only one that I've noticed that has that bad of a view obstruction, trying to see the oncoming traffic. So, Laura, there's a picture of that too.
Is it in the same document?
Yeah, I think it's below this one.
That back.
There we go. So, as you can see, if you look straight ahead, there's the area where we're supposed to stop, and then there's the crosswalk. You can just see the start of it, in the middle, all the way to the right. And, if you stop where you're supposed to stop, you can't see the oncoming traffic. You actually have to go into the crosswalk to see what's coming. And, there's been a lot of near misses out there. So, I think the pavers would also, help that, because it, you go on the pavers, it makes a little bouncy thing and gets people's attention. So between that and, that's just one additional thing.
Can I ask you a question regarding that? Can that just be trimmed to help?
Well,
I mean, can't you, whose property? Is that the CDD property?
yes.
Who's, let's, I'm sorry,
You have the easement.
so they can trim it.
Well,
Wouldn't that be better than? I mean, if you have a serious safety factor The pavers aren't gonna solve that. Trimming that will.
I think the pavers will help get people's attention. 'Cause sometimes, you know, people just roll out. If you roll out, you could be on top of someone like that.
John, this first came to our attention because this was the only community or one of only two communities that didn't have pavers at the entrance. As you recall, this has been going on for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's.
And it seems to me the safety issue, if we want to go further, is a separate thing, but we ought to look at these pavers as one thing we want to do. I agree with you. If there's a safety issue, that somebody ought to propose to cut some of that stuff back, but I think that's a separate project.
Okay.
There's really two things you could do. The collusions are the ones closest to the homes. There's another group of plantings that are closer to the sidewalk. If you cut those down, that would help. I just don't know how much it would help, but it would help. Okay, because right there, we can see where the Prado turns in a little bit. Cars, when they're in there, you can't see it. So I mean, I'd suggest doing maybe that. If you get in there and start cutting down those collusions though.
No, Phil's
the owner
comment
that
is
lives-
we should discuss this pavers
I mean,
specific.
Yeah, let's stick with the pavers, and
Okay.
if they feel they want this work done, it ought to be looked at by the safety and security work group to see whether that needs doing, but it should be a separate.
Okay, yeah, I
The
just think
pavers should not be a safety type
it
discussion.
would help.
So Jack,
It's
have
not
you-
gonna help everybody.
Have you taken any measurements about the amount of pavers that we're talking about? Because as I see this compared to Matarita 1, that monument has maybe 4 feet on the front. This looks like it's significantly longer. And then the pavers are like 16 by 30 or something of that nature around Casella. And I think the rest of them. This looks like it'd be significantly bigger than that. Have you
Yeah.
ever done any measurements?
Yes, I have, and it's the same size as Costello.
I think the fundamental question here is, maybe I missed it, but what is this gonna cost?
Yeah, where's your quote? Because I know you and I have met yesterday and I went out there to look at this, but didn't you have a quote?
Yeah,
That should be given to all
I
of
got a
us.
lot of stuff here.
Yeah, but I mean, we need a copy of all that to make a decision.
Here we go. Here's the actual invoice for Casella. And I went out and measured it, and ours would be pretty much the exact same thing. The only thing that might be less is, maybe you can help me with this. There seemed to be a lot of curb work replaced on your monument
Seemed to me
island.
16.
Oh, was it? Okay, it wasn't part of that project. Okay, yeah. Okay, but other than that, it should be pretty much the same thing.
So you don't,
get
just to clarify, there is no quote to have the work done, because in my experience, even though they look similar, the cost, it's not apples to apples. There may be some other factors that are different.
So you have not gotten a quote for your specific area yet.
No, but like I said, I'm pretty confident it was recently done. Maybe the prices have gone up, but I went out there and measured it. And, it's on each side of the monument island, it's 14 feet. And then, on ours, on Matarita 2 and Casella, so exactly the same.
Shouldn't we ask that you go out and get a quote, come back with us, so we know how much we're approving, and come back to the next meeting, we'll approve it with a quote.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're all amenable to
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just that we'd like to have the definitive numbers
Yeah.
before we say yes.
You also, I mean, I went on, looked at the area. I think it's important to go out and look to see the area he's talking about.
Yeah.
You know, we have another for the next meeting. And whether that area, it was not done by WCI. Should they have us approve it? I mean, he and I even talked about, I know he may get upset at this, but they have 170 some,
174.
you know, if they wanted to do it themselves, it would probably even be like maybe $100 per homeowner.
The
So I
bottom
think
line
we
of
have
it-
a right to vote on it and let's
Okay.
approve it if we can. If not, get it done anyway, because it would be,
I think a lot of homeowners would be upset about that
like,
because
they don't want to.
every single one on those 3 roads have pavers. We don't, we haven't, so why are we being treated differently? Casella was the same thing. I mean, they weren't in the plan, and yet Gateway ended up putting in pavers for them.
I agree with you. All I'm saying is that if for some reason it was voted down, ask your own HOA, hey, do you guys want it? Let's do it. I mean, we do that at our HOA a lot.
I think what we're actually looking for is let's just get a formal proposal with
Yeah.
numbers and then we will
Yeah,
then.
because
but
we're
we
the,
agree with your.
we're
your
the, if,
basic
if we're gonna
premise.
pay for it, we're the ones who are gonna have to go out for the quote, not you. I don't think you should have to do that. It should not.
I'd be glad to, what I do is I just call this Timo brothers that did Casella and tell them to come out. They did, to my knowledge, all the paver work in Pelican.
All right, CC, you have some comments?
Yeah, please, a comment from Cece. Just for the record, at Casella, we did not go get the quote. The quote was provided by somebody named Steve Agapi at Tetra Tech. He did the analysis, and then that was all handled at Gateway. We were not involved. That all got submitted to the PPAC, then voted on it. So,
Does this
seems
have
to
to
me
go-
that the difference is
because
though, that the difference is that I think we were able to find something in the background material that indicated it was different. We didn't find anything for Matarita too, but we did find that for Casella, there was material that indicated that it had been planned.
it's not-
Yeah.
Bob Geppert, you're exactly correct in the way you said it, Bill. There are a number of entrances that don't have pavers. I'm just gonna throw that out there. You also have a number of communities that have Casella 1, Casella 2, Casella 3, Casella 4. We don't have monuments. Palazzo 1, 2, 3, they don't have monuments. Just look before you leave. There are pavers to go into Matarita on the main boulevard, not on the other one, but it's not the only community like that. If memory serves me right, one in Tiberio is that way too. I did walk around on my notes, but I did ride around. Casella was by no means the only one that didn't have it, but they were the only community that didn't have a bricked entrance, but everybody else did in one way or the other. So just look, that's all. Just look at it before you go and say you want to do it. It's not cheap.
It was
And it can open the door for everybody else to ask for the same thing.
yeah, we ended up spending about $18,000 at Casella. That's what the total bill was.
Unless, of course, Matarita 2 became approved as a separate property, then that would take that issue away of being multi.
Casella 1, Casella 2, Casella 3.
Well, we all have the same entrance. We all have the same entrance.
But there was engineering.
Okay, just offering my opinion.
I would also mention that CC and that group had basically exhausted all the alternatives of going to Lennar and others for recouping money because it wasn't done. So we took that into consideration as well. I think we need some kind of a quote so that we can get,
Laura, do we
And-
just
and-
direct you to ask for a quote?
I can work with
Can we-
Keith.
Okay.
Keith and I are gonna take a ride over
Let's
there.
do it. I mean, we've pounded this to death.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing is I think there needs to be an understanding of where there should be pavers, where there should be monuments, what size is the road, what's the speed limit. I know those other communities that Bob was referring to, they're all on, I believe, 15-mile-an-hour 2-lane roads. And it's a lot different, be 15 and 30 miles an hour. Some of them, like the old one, Ravina, that's the old part of Pelican is most, I don't know what their plan was, some have pavers, some have, signs inside, but I mean, the way all these neighborhoods are, there's only, pavers and monuments coming off the main roads. So, and then you get down by, some of the coach homes and in condos that Bob was referring to. Back there, I got pictures if you want to see it, but I'm sure you want to move on to other things, but they have side monuments. And the reason is, I'm assuming, is because the roads are too narrow to put a monument in an island in the center of the roadway. So I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe that's the reason they didn't put in pavers. But we need to know. I mean, there's got to be rules where you're going to do it, where you can't do it. And
Jack, we're faced with all kinds of issues like this, and we wonder why a roundabout was not legal to get two cars through it. And we're spending a lot of money on doing that.
yeah,
So we are amenable to your request. And you know, each situation is looked at on kind of an individual basis.
okay.
So, all
All
right,
right.
we need to have some kind of a, guardrails on the budget, if you will. in
Totally
terms of-
understand.
This is a 30-mile-an-hour area, is that correct?
Ours is, yes.
And putting pavers on a 30-mile-per-hour.
No, it's on the side road. It's not on the
It'd be
main road.
On the ends, just like
All
every.
right, so it will not be.
Entry,
Here's some-
entry.
Okay.
By the
Just
monument.
right around the
Yeah.
monument.
In, you know, different communities, differently, I mean, Crean has 3 entrances. So why don't they just have one main one and 2 secondary ones? But, yeah, but you know,
There's,
I used to live in Carina, and it's a big community. So I think it looks nice to have, you know, monuments and pavers going off of Cypress Grove. So, but anyways, well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. At this point, do you need anything additional from me, or are you gonna pursue getting a quote?
we're gonna pursue, or Laura will pursue with Keith to see what we could do about getting a full, pledged quote. And then Randy, you were going to look at, safety.
The next safety and security meeting, we'll see about
Okay.
trying to address this
Some of them are
sightlines here, I
Yeah,
guess.
We'll look
Okay.
at that while we're there too, and then we'll also have to check to see if it actually is the homeowners or if it's on district.
Okay.
So if it's not on district, if it's not in our easement or on our property, we can't tell them they have to trim their bushes.
I believe part of it is the one closest to the entryway, and that would be the part you'd want to trim
Yeah,
down.
we'll go take a
first.
look at it
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
That is a significant issue because we've been beat up about that, you know, on Benito Drive,
Ah, okay.
you know, as that.
Or in order to
Creek
save time when you
All right.
contact the
Thank you.
county, let them look into the drawings to see if they can find old drawings like that's how we did Prado.
Yep.
And have Tony look into it. There may be some old, we only looked at Prado and Casella the last time. So it may be that these were missed in drawings. Let's just investigate that
Good.
while we're going through the call.
I do have one comment, I guess it's for the committee. Jack now has told us that there could be a safety issue there. Pavers might help, we don't know that, but you're gonna have that taken a look at, Randy. There's consistency and there's fairness that goes along with it. And we've been put on notice that there's been, narrow misses out there. We've been put on notice, so I think something needs to be done. That's my personal feeling.
Any other comments? Item E, capital improvement plan discussion.
That's you guys.
That's us.
Yep. I believe that Peg got the attachment from you, Peggy. Or is that you that sent it over?
No, this was not.
Wasn't.
Mine was the comprehensive priorities.
It's the capital improvement. It's blank.
Laura,
It is blank because, what we're looking at.
I'll look for that.
We're getting ready for, we're getting ready for budget planning. So, I know it is only barely February, but, we have to have the original, the high water mark set by June 15th. So we've got a little over 4 months to work on this. So the request of the district and for you guys to think about is to look ahead at anything that you are going to want to do in Pelican as far as larger projects. This just kind of give you an idea here, like these are things we had done in the past. So the boardwalk, I'm hoping, knock on wood, that that's good for a while, but there's gonna probably, you'll have some maintenance on that. But if you want to do any work on the ponds or if there's repairs, I know we have should be the final year of the downspout initiative next year. Anything you're gonna wanna do on your roads, if you wanna do anything to enhance monuments, the gatehouse, the streetlights, all of those things. So this is just kind of to give you an idea of things that came to the top of our head or have been done in the past as far as capital projects inside of Pelican Preserve. So ultimately, it's your budget and the district doesn't want to say you need to fix this. I mean, obviously, if there's something that needs to be fixed, we would tell you it needed to be fixed, but these are things that just kind of have you start thinking about. We wanted to get it in front of you and we're hoping to project it out for 10 years, as you can see here. So it doesn't mean that it's going to be something necessarily for next year, but if you're thinking maybe 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, we can start building that in. So we'd like to do this on a rolling basis. Each year, reevaluate it, take a look, see where we're at. Priorities may change this year. You may put something on there that you're thinking you're going to do in 2 or 3 years and something happens and you end up having to do it like the next year. So it's a living document, but it's just something to kind of get your thoughts going.
Laura, I'm a little confused. I thought that we were gonna get a quote from, was it Reserve Advisors? For.
They're not going to tell you what to do. They look at the condition of things in general and recommend how much money you should set aside based on what they think is going to come up. They should not be the ones setting your capital budget. You should be the one setting your
But,
capital
but
budget.
will we at least get some information from them? I mean,
Yeah, we have not received it yet.
we haven't, but,
No.
but it seems to me, we're starting, with a blank slate.
Well, there may
I
be
mean,
things that you want to do that aren't on here too.
Uh,
So that's why this is out here.
Okay,
So
but
this doesn't mean that you can only do what's here. This is just suggestions or like I said, there are things from the
Understood,
past.
but are we gonna have a reserve study? In
Yeah, we
addition to-
haven't gotten it yet. Yes, you will. Once we
Okay.
receive it, we will share it, but I don't want you to wait for that. It's important that you think about these things now and that may affect the numbers or it may affect your priorities or it may give you suggestions for different things to put on here, but I don't think you should wait for that to do this.
Except we need some kind of guidance, it seems to me, if-
I'm not
if-
asking you to put dollars to it right now. Looking for items. We can get that, we can get to the
Okay.
dollars later. So at least start thinking about the projects.
Okay,
And then as we get closer to the budgeting time, like probably March, or maybe April at the latest, we can start assigning some dollars to it. We should have I would hope we would have the reserve study back by then. Last that we heard, they were close, but we have not received it yet.
okay.
So don't worry about the dollars at this point. This is more just things that are gonna need to be replaced or you think are gonna need to be replaced or projects that you'd like to take on, put them on this list. And that doesn't mean these things have to stay on here. Again, this is just conversation starter.
Do we need a committee to,
You are the committee. This is your
yeah,
budget.
but I mean, to just
So
assign somebody
I would suggest that you farm it out to your subcommittees because you got your landscape subcommittee. So if there's any landscaping things, they would cover like the monuments and things like that. Your safety and security would be the gatehouse, the bridges, the streetlights. They take care of all the roads and those kind of things. That would be them. Ponds stuff is the pond subcommittee. So you can ask for their input on this. You have liaisons for your committees here, so they can take that forward.
Okay,
So this isn't meant like
I
we have to
think
sit down right
John,
now and
we
fill
should-
this out. This is a conversation starter.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I think you should formally ask
each of the
our-
committee heads.
each of the
to-
committee
look over
liaisons
it.
to carry
Absolutely.
that and look.
And we have Mark here, we have you here.
And we have Peggy here.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. All right, so E and F were the same, is
I
that
ha-
correct?
No, actually, it's not. Laura, just one other question. Have we gotten the results yet from Tony's determining what is within our
Not yet.
purview? Okay.
Trust me, you'll see him as soon as we do.
I know.
We haven't seen him yet. He's getting closer. There's a lot to it. It's more than just simply looking in LIPA. He's got to look through titles. He's doing title searches and easements and documents where they don't record everything the same. So sometimes it may be on this page when they record everything, but in a different document, it's on this page. So he's having to literally read through every page of every parcel that we own.
And just as an aside on that, are we sure we've got enough resources on the attorney's side for our?
He has a
gateway?
team. He has a team.
He has a team.
Yes, it's not just Tony.
All right, it just seems like it's.
Yeah, he has helpers.
Very long. Yeah.
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
It sounds really easy on the surface, and I thought the same thing until he started explaining what was actually all involved in it.
Patience not being my best virtue.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. But to answer to your question, no, the next one was something that I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
And so do we want to move on to that?
Yes.
Oh, that was yours. Okay, I knew you sent something,
did.
but I couldn't remember which one it was.
Okay, so kind of in line with what we were talking about prior is when I came onto the committee, I was looking for what is our outline of activities? Where is our, what are we prioritizing? When are we prioritizing? Who is running, basically a punch list for projects, and was not able to find anything. It's pretty much just whatever comes up in front of the committee each time. So what I would like to suggest is something similar to what I got this from Frank Robers, because I was asking how they prioritize what's in front of the PPCA. And this was what he's been using. And I just put it out there as an example. But I really think that it would behoove us as a committee to have a workshop timeframe where we could sit down and really say, what is in front of us? What are we looking at? What are we prioritizing? And who amongst us is going to be running those initiatives to make sure that we get results? So what I would like to suggest is, in conjunction with us getting our priorities straight for what we want to be working on, it would backfill into the capital budgets list, and we could at least have a running list of how we want to move forward.
Peggy, I assume this would not be just construction or capital stuff. This would be projects that we need to work on.
Anything.
Anything.
I would say,
Anything.
even if it's human.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's something that we want to work on communication or something else,
Mhm.
we just need to have better controls on what we're focused on. Because we keep looking to Laura and her team to tell us what's next on our plate. Whereas I feel like we should be telling Laura what's next on their plate. In my personal opinion.
It's a very good idea. I think what we should all take as personal assignments to go and start to fill in this list so that we could then have a workshop.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach to it, that we each would come up with what our priorities are, going back as we are liaisons to our groups, finding out what they want us to prioritize, and then moving forward.
I think that's a good way to help populate your capital improvement plan as well.
Well, I think myself being new, I don't know what's been talked about prior. And so when you talk about, this has been brought up 6 months ago, this was brought up 2 years ago, I have no idea what is still in working progress that hasn't been completed, that has been talked about. So I have no bearing on what's going on. And so if we had a document, something like this, that this is what we're talking about, this is what we hope to do something about, either do it or don't do it. At least it's in front of us of what's been not completed and we're still talking about or still reviewing, waiting for estimates or whatever. So I think something like this would be very helpful for myself, since I don't know a lot that's been happened 3 months prior.
The board has this kind of thing too.
Sure.
The Board of Supervisors actually has, we call it our agenda management document, where anybody can put, the staff, board members, put things that they'd like to discuss at future meetings or things they would like to have done. And we put a date that it's added and a date that they'd like to bring it up. And that way it's a spreadsheet that we keep
And
that
maybe-
helps them prioritize. If we got time to do something, or if we have an opportunity to do something, we look down the list and say, okay, where does this go?
And maybe update it when it's been updated, saying we've just discussed this and this is where we're at, this is where we're going forward.
The other thing that I think would be beneficial is if we already have assigned part of our unassigned capital to some project, a future project, we
Yes.
could we could put it in there and keep our running list there of what we've already spoken for.
Mhm.
Kit, who's going to be responsible for keeping this updated and make sure it's,
Wonderful question.
Did you
Um,
just volunteer?
I don't know that I did, but I was going to check with Laura to say, what's your recommendation on ongoing management? I mean, I can do spreadsheets and everything till the cows come home.
I guess I would ask that that PPAC create the initial document and then,
I'm sorry, the P-PAC,
create the initial document.
okay.
So that way it's in a format that you want to see it. And then each meeting, we can make sure that we add that, we can add the agenda. You can call it something, we can add it into your agenda. We'll make sure that we discuss it at each meeting and do the updates and then, Georgia or I or somebody will make sure that the actual document gets updated. Unless somebody here wants to take that on and you can update it and send it to Georgia so she gets it published.
I will take ownership for creating an initial document.
I think that's an excellent way to do it.
And then what I'll do is I'll send that on to Georgia. She'll send it on to you guys and then you can repopulate it. What's our timing then for a workshop?
We have to give at least a week notice. So it depends on if you want to do it as part of one of your other meetings or if you'd like to have a totally separate meeting. I will say that the fact that we have a board of supervisors twice a month, you guys, a Parks and Rec committee and 3 subcommittees, we spend I'm either approving agenda items or submitting agenda items. So there's not, the time frame is kind of tight. So my suggestion would be maybe if you guys wanted to take like an hour, maybe you could meet at 1 o'clock instead of 2, if we have an availability that day to do the workshop and do that from like 1 to 2 and then do your regular meeting at 2 o'clock. Since you're already meeting on a consistent basis, I'll just make sure that the room is available, which it normally is. That would be up to you when you'd like to do it.
I'd like to recommend that we don't do it for March, just because we need to give our subcommittees time for that, but potentially April.
Okay.
If we could pull up an hour early on that.
Thank you. Excellent idea. Excellent idea. Any other comments?
I can mention that safety and security does have a list of priorities, and of projects that they would like to suggest. Some of them are capital and some are simply, how do we encourage residents to wear a helmet when they're riding their bike, kind of thing. I mean, that are just.
So I think we have to be.
They do have a list.
We want to make sure that we aren't micromanaging the committees. We want to make sure that they're handling things at the level that they can handle them at, and that we are looking at the things that potentially have capital impact.
That's, yeah, for sure.
Unless it's something as important as, safety that needs to go out to everybody or something like that. But I still think that's within the purview of that subcommittee.
Excellent. Item F.
John, as you know, I was the one who put this on the agenda. And I think all of you got copies of the current golf cart regulations. They are out of date in several ways. And then, and really a kind of a new element has come into them as well. The kind of thing you'll find is, first place, let's take a simple one. We were going to update this resolution to cover the colors of the golf carts. And we had informally, I guess, I'm not even sure, I think we even voted on it, that we would expand the palette of colors for golf carts. But it was never officially codified. We never put that into the resolution, which it needs to be, because this resolution doesn't allow for the multicolors that we now see in the community. I mean, this thing has.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you before we go very far on this. I had some conversations with Tony about this. This is not something that the district would be involved in. It's an HOA thing, and in our opinion, you're talking about vehicles that are in your community, and it's not something that the district should be regulating.
Well, except it's in this resolution.
Right.
And
we need to fix that. So that Tony and I.
Well, okay, maybe it needs to be fixed, because what I'm suggesting is we need some action on this resolution.
Right.
But there are a number of other things in this resolution that need to be changed. The list of roads is not complete. um, the neighborhoods. We also have something that's come to the fore that does involve the district. Uh, The way we have said in this document where golf carts can travel. And there was frankly a considerable wrestling match over this issue about 5 years ago. That a lot of us came away very tired from. Right now, golf carts can ride in the lanes at the far right-hand side of the road. But they are not required to be in there. They can also drive in the lanes where the regular vehicle traffic travels. Now, we've had a lot of interest from people actually in the HOA about having a bicycle path. And we had originally, even before all this happened 5 years ago, we had marked the auxiliary lane as a bicycle path. And we were told that we couldn't do that. But it seems to me if we're changing the rules on the roads, maybe the colors aren't part of it, but if we're changing the rules on the road, that's something that's a CDD function. And we need to look at that, because I think one possibility is to go to what some of us had proposed years ago, is that the golf carts travel in the same lanes as the regular vehicles, and that the lane at the far right-hand side be left for bicycles, so people don't ride bicycles on their
Phil, if I remember,
sidewalk.
there really isn't a lane for bicycles. It's a bicycle path, but it's not a lane for golf carts because it's way too small.
Yeah.
And if the golf carts are traveling there and you had a car in both lanes, that's pretty close.
John, as you recall, we made that argument.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's been discussed. And that's why we allowed the golf carts in the regular lanes. And the other thing with golf carts now, I think they're going as fast as the cars.
So
Let Bill finish first, okay?
well, no, my proposal is that we look at this resolution and see what kind of revisions we need to make. And maybe we do have to work with Tony on it, but it seems to me to have a separate resolution about the colors of the golf carts and another resolution about where they can travel doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense to me, but maybe that's what we ought to be doing.
I'm chatting with Tony right now. I would request that we hold this item until your next meeting so that I have a chance to talk to him and possibly have him attend the meeting to give some input on this. I don't want to make any decisions or recommendations or anything at this time, so.
As you know, my suggestion was not to make any decisions at this meeting. My suggestion is that we undertake a relook at this resolution.
But what I'm saying is the resolution may be moot. This may be something that that Tony is gonna say that we should just, I don't know how we undo a resolution. So I would prefer that we hold on having this conversation until we can have Tony involved.
Well, Phil Sirica for the PPCA. I will, as much as I love Tony, the community association has never in its history ever issued a rule about golf carts. It's always been the district. You determined what vehicles could be on the roads, how they should be operated, what they should look like. We've never taken any part in that decision. We act as your agent in registering those golf carts and as part of our O&M and getting stickers on them to prove that they've been inspected and insured, but they're all your rules. I would also point out that the golf carts go out onto the multi-use paths beyond our community. They go out onto Tree Line Boulevard, they go up to Colonial, they go down to the adjacent developments in Gateway. This is not, I can tell you this, and will never be an HOA deal. This is yours. You got to own it. And I think Phil is right. It needs to be addressed.
So one of the comments regarding the golf carts, at this point, we have so many different kind right now. How do you, I mean, it'd be very, very difficult to regulate the community golf carts.
But
The club has great rules. They can't, if it's not a certain color, it doesn't get on the golf course. I mean, I don't think
I don't,
we as a,
I don't think Phil's saying that we need to regulate the colors. He's just saying that we need to change what was originally, when I first moved in here, they said you had, if you wanted a golf cart, it had to be a tan, Easy Go, or I can't remember the other brand, and that was it. That was your only choices. So now I think Phil is saying that we have kind of gone away from
oh,
that.
it really
And
has.
so there's
all
no
over.
reason to do that. He doesn't think we should go back to that, but I think he just needs that this.
we need to, we need to codify what we allow and what we don't allow. And right now, John, you brought up another thing that isn't covered with this thing, and that is the interaction between golf carts from the golf course, the ones that are owned by the golf course, which don't have some of the safety stuff on them that ours do, but they still drive out on the road.
They are not allowed to be on the
No.
roads.
Well, but
That's a
They
Lee
are
County.
not
I understand that, except that there are places where they go on the roads because they travel
To and from the.
to and from the golf course and
Okay, I have a request.
Okay.
Again, can you please give us a month to have staff look over the resolution since it is from 2018? Let us review it, let us work with the attorney and bring it back to your
Yeah,
next
Let
meeting.
me make a
And then we
comment.
can have, I feel we can have a more productive conversation if we do
The
that.
golf course has specific crossing. The biggest problem is Pelican, not Pelican Reserve Boulevard, but Cypress Grove. A lot of the people in the golf course will take their carts and travel that one long area to go up to, from hole 8 to hole 9. All right. That is not a legal golf cart crossing by the golf club. They have a golf cart path separate to the sidewalk that the carts must go on. If you are driving in a Pelican Preserve golf cart owned by the golf course, you are not allowed on the road. And I have told people that I golf with, if they go on that road and there's an accident, there can be some serious legal issues. Now, if you own your own golf cart, you are allowed to go on the road. And that's based on your own insurance. If you have an accident, you have insurance for that. The golf course, golf carts, totally separate. They are not allowed to go on that road. Now, how do you enforce it? I don't know.
well, I have to get one more shot in. How are people going from Heron 3 to Heron 4? Are they flying?
Well,
That's it.
There's no, well, Phil, you know, the streets, there is just a short path across, from those. What John's talking about is.
I know what he's talking about. The only thing I'm suggesting is that we need to look at this. That was why I put it on the agenda. I
Understood.
didn't put it on the agenda for us to settle it
Let's
here.
look
No,
up
I know,
again.
but I also had a conversation with Tony years ago and looking at the possibility of possibly the issue of that golf cart crossing and everything else. There is enough room for cars to, because there was an issue regarding stop signs. There's enough space for a car going, and I think we did a slight calculation, even 45 miles an hour, to slam on their brakes and stop at the original golf cart crossing where you're allowed to go.
Yeah, we're trying to settle something, John, that needs to
I've,
be
I've got
reviewed.
a, follow up with what Bill had to say here. That the PPCA has no responsibility.
I don't think we do.
I'm like, Sharon, when I bought one, it had to be a certain color, it had to be a certain make and everything else. And then it changed. Who made that change? That's my question. Who made the change? Who-
This-
who-
this
made-
happened about last.
We made that
last
change.
spring.
We made that change.
You did.
This is a year
Yeah,
ago.
Yeah, we
And the- and
we
the
voted
group
for it.
decided-
Okay,
It was
Right.
just never put into the resolution.
so that
So it
came
was
out of
decided
feedback.
that any color was going to be acceptable because manufacturers kept changing all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So people didn't have the option of going back and getting an easy go with this tan or beige or
because
whatever.
some people.
So the
were-
idea was
Some
that
people
we
were under
would-
the assumption that the PPCA had made that change, but it was PPAC.
It was PPAC.
Okay, good.
And the emphasis was put on, let's try to make sure that we get people to register and demonstrate that they have insurance. And even that is something that's somewhat
needs-
difficult to
That's right,
enforce.
and maybe
And
that
that's
needs
the
to be
bottom
looked at
line.
too.
If we can't enforce it, then it's a suggestion at best.
Stacy, go ahead.
So.
Stacy Haas, Casella, November 22nd, 21, the memo came out about the changes in the golf cart colors and regulations. So that's when it happened.
But the resolution was never changed to reflect that.
Okay, but
But that-
that's what. and so
That's right, yes, we did. We
Yeah,
passed it. That's
you-
what I'm
You guys
saying.
did, and then
We-
the management
we
company
did, so-
began enforcing it, which, you know, people
Yeah.
are allowed colors, but.
You know, there are
Yeah,
lot,
correct.
there are lots of things that need to be done. One of the things this thing says is customized golf carts are prohibited. We don't define customized golf carts. There's just all sorts of things that need to be looked at in this resolution. And the issue of, so I think Laura's suggestion is very good. Let's have Tony take a look at it and then we'll decide how to go forward.
Any other comments? Item H, monuments. Mark, you're up again.
Mark Eversman, Portofino, and Chair of the Landscape Subcommittee. You have the policy that I sent to Georgia. So when I started being in charge of the PPAC landscaping, people in cul-de-sacs, which are owned by PPAC, were coming and saying, we want to redo our cul-de-sacs, which PPAC owns. And the past practice had been that the PPAC would allocate money towards that. We did not do their design. We did not do anything, select a contractor. We just said, there's an allotment of money that we are willing to put toward that. And for years, it wasn't really used. I don't think it was really known that it was out there. Well, it's out there now. And so about 2 months ago, I was asked if I could write a policy, which I did do. And is that the current one?
Yep.
Nope. There was actually one I sent to her this morning.
This is the only one I got.
Okay, there was one I sent to Georgia this morning. It's almost exactly like this. Our committee met this morning. We had already reviewed it, and the one extra thing that we added, and I'll explain why, it's just a paragraph that says, if you want to get money allocated towards your project, you have to make the request in the first quarter of our fiscal year, October, November, December, because we're having issues with people asking for funds and dragging it out to over a year. And to try and do a budget when people are running from one year into another is, my money for this year's budget is allocated for 3 communities that I approved last year that just haven't gotten the work done. And I'm not blaming those communities. There were other circumstances. So basically, this is the written policy with another paragraph saying they must make the request the first 3 months of the fiscal year and finish the project in that fiscal year. So I'm asking the PPAC to review this. And again, you'll probably want to wait till you get one I currently sent to Georgia after this morning's meeting before you make an official approval or make changes as you want. So that's one thing. And the other part, while we're talking about cul-de-sacs and monuments, as I've said, the line item budget for cul-de-sacs and monuments is 15,000. That's 5 HOA requests. We have over 70 monuments, cul-de-sacs, and they're coming out of the woodwork. I have 5 that have made the request that I've told I can't honor it right now because I don't have the money in my budget for it. So at our committee, the meeting this morning, we made a recommendation that I come here and request that we approve $20,000 out of general funds, which would go towards allowing more communities to renovate their cul-de-sacs and monuments. And if you look at them, they need it. I mean, most of these haven't been touched since they were put in 15 to 20 years ago. And the hurricane has gone through and knocked some stuff down. They're starting to look ratty. So if you did that, that would allow me to clear up my backlog that I've got sitting there waiting to hear when money gets approved. as well as allow me 3 more because I know they'll come in. So that's my request to the community, that you request an additional 20,000 so we can hopefully get some of these cul-de-sacs moving along, taken care of.
Mark, were you intending that this covers not just the landscaping at the monuments, but also the monuments themselves? This issue came up in the President's Council meeting this morning as to whether the painting of the monuments is
Right
part
now,
of this.
I wasn't aware the landscaping was painting for the monuments. And, Jen Lewis graciously agreed to have one of the monuments that, has been requested painted. And I said, if they want landscaping, they need to come and make a request for that. But she has, said that some of the people that she is in charge of would take care of the painting. Yeah, basically rusting.
So this doesn't, that, it came up this morning and I was well aware of that.
They
So
can use-
your intent was just to cover the landscaping.
Correct.
I
But
think,
they
I
can
think,
use this money as long as they have a licensed contractor that is registered with us for what they want, and that contractor then sends us the invoice for $2,500.
Or whatever amount you approve, not to
Or-
exceed $2,500.
Right now it's 2,500. Now, I do have a request from one community, Monticello, that has said, we only want $1,500 and we'll be happy, and that's what we want to do to fix our cul-de-sacs, so. Hopefully people will be reasonable and not just say, how can I spend $2,500?
Yeah, well, have you established a list of those who have,
already,
so that you got a pecking order?
Yes, and I have sent Laura the list of ones that have already
Okay.
been approved. I have not sent the ones that have not been approved, but I've got their emails and when they
Okay.
occurred, and I can develop the list.
There's a lot of confusion in the President's Council. They just all now feel like there's gonna get this money. And
The other
I
confusion.
took some arrows for you this morning.
President's Council,
Yeah.
but I wasn't told
And
about it
Bill.
on the agenda. So I was hopefully going to clear up this confusion.
My suggestion would be, and this is just because I pay bills all the time, if they're gonna come to you for money, I think they should already have the estimates before they come to ask, not just saying, I want to do some work. And we have $2,500. I think they should have everything lined up and say, here's what we would like to do, here's what it's gonna cost, can we have the money?
Discuss that. The one issue though is, again, I've got 5 that are sitting there waiting. And they don't want to go work and get an estimate until they know they can get the money, because I'm telling them they can't get the money. Because if you go get an estimate, the estimate's usually only good for 30 to 60 days.
But at least it gives you an idea of how much money they're asking, approximately how much.
Most are gonna really, you want to do a nice job on a monument,
Use it
you're
all.
gonna spend more than $2,500. And then the HOA is on the hook for the
The
rest of that money.
But that's up to the HOA.
Correct, correct. We draw the line at
I mean, in
25.
Portofino, we do that in each of the, we spend a lot of our own money in.
it's important that we get this published because there was a lot of confusion in the meeting this morning.
Again, I
As to,
requested to talk to the presidents.
Hmm.
I got put on the agenda, but I didn't know I was on the agenda. And it was at the same time I had my subcommittee meeting, so.
Comment?
Actually, I'm Kathleen Anderson of Beulah Circle. So on the monuments, when this starts or when people start doing it, one thing is like, if you look at Avila monuments, the fire bushes, if you know what they are, they grow really fast. You can't kill them, and they're orange. So who's going to, for cohesiveness, you know, is that you, Mark, decide what's gonna go in? Cause if somebody's turning in and they don't know what plants cost more, cause they'll take 6 cuttings a year, cause some will block visually versus 2 cuttings a year. You know, a slow grower, a 3-gallon versus, you know, a 7-gallon. Calusa, you know, certain ones shouldn't be there. So do they go, I guess I'm asking in case somebody would ask me, do they go through you for approval, or, you know, who's going to know the correct plantings? Cause it isn't just, hey, we're turning in 2,500. when you could have got an estimate on a 3 gallon versus a 7 gallon. And if 4 places are doing the monuments and it's somewhat cohesive, it doesn't have to be matchy-matchy, but it's cheaper to get them in bulk. So that's my input.
Past practices, we have not,
Fix the mic.
we have not reviewed what the HOAs have wanted to do, and it hasn't been a problem where an HOA did anything crazy. And you do have HOAs that will redo their own cul-de-sac, not even talk to us about it, and just take it upon themselves and do it. We have zero input on that. If somebody wants to ask the landscaping subcommittee's opinion, we're happy to give it. We'll make recommendations, but I truly believe that the HOAs really want to have a say as to what goes in for their monuments and their cul-de-sacs. They're the ones that are living with it. I mean, we can go through and say, okay, I'll just design it for you. And if they don't like it, that's too bad, because that's what we're gonna put in. Most of them want individual input. I mean, one of the nicest ones you'll see is Bellagio. They didn't ask for a penny. They just did it.
Right.
Mark, would it be possible for the committee to come up with a bunch of different acceptable plans that are not gonna outgrow, be outgrown in 3 years or
There's
things
just
like
so
that?
much out there. I mean,
Okay.
people ask all the time, hey, I want to redo this. And it's like, you got to give me someplace to start.
At Portofino, we have volunteers that'll go out and they'll trim it. We don't always ask for the, or, all right, other comment.
I understand.
Yeah, you go up to the,
Well, again, Jack Pierce from Madria too. My understanding is if you get the monument area re-landscape, you have to get approval, just like you would if the approval you have to do to put or change landscaping in your home.
I was told the ACC does not approve cul-de-sac.
at CDD property. I don't think they have anything to do with it, does it?
Yeah. Was told wrong.
Hi, Bill Sirico again for the PPCA. Yeah, I love the jurisdictions in Pelican Reserve. The alphabet soup drives me crazy. The ACC only. All right, I'm sorry.
We're so excited.
E.
See the effect you have on people.
Yeah, I know. The ACC only approves, residential and, common areas within neighborhoods. We don't do monuments or any other GSCDD lands. So that are owned by the district. There are some cul-de-sacs that are still in the name of, or areas at ends of streets that are still in the names of the community association, and we can talk about that some other time. I find this whole conversation rather interesting because we've been having this debate for what, a year and a half over, what belongs to the district and what belongs to the community association and who should be able to do what. It seems it's funny that you take ownership of something, but you're not taking responsibility to maintain it. The monuments belong to you. Don't tell a neighborhood they've got to spend their money or they're restricted to $2,500 if that's what needs to be fixed. It's yours. Take ownership. Thank you.
And we have done that on a few of them, like in Camarel. A few bushes here and there in Camarel, Tiberio. We just did a few bushes on each one of those to upgrade them so they look decent again. Some monuments and cul-de-sacs look really bad. And I mean, they need a gut job, start over and whatever. Now, I can put in something for under $2,500, but they probably won't like it if I'm gonna stay under $2,500.
Then give it back to us and we'll take care of it. Take it off our taxes, the community association will take over. Don't want to own this. Can't say, just gonna do what I want to do. You either own it or you don't.
So I would say, Mark, maybe one thing would be when we are looking for our projects and our initiatives, if you wanted to write up a bigger, full revamp on monument redos, if we own them and we need to take care of them, then maybe that's something that we put on our priority list. I mean, it's a way to approach it.
Again, so many communities like to have their own input
Well-
and take care of their own.
And you may end up in the situation where we say we own them, we are taking care of them. And too bad, so sad. I mean, that's the reality of
I
ownership.
disagree with that.
Do you?
I mean, well, sure, if you look at Bellagio, you look at Portofino, communities, we don't own the cul-de-sac, we don't own the monument, but we want a nice entrance area, and we'll spend the money to do it. If the other communities want to do it, they should spend the money to do it,
But what if a community doesn't want to do it?
and that's up
Wouldn't-
to them.
But
And
wouldn't-
at the, because they can get a vote, or their community could say, hey, that cul-de-sac looks like heck. It's up to that. I don't know. Maybe we do things different in Portofino, and I'm not speaking as PPAC, I'm
Yeah.
speaking as Portofino. We put in our budget. We've never had any complaints with people saying, hey, your budget's too high, you're spending too much money on the roads. We seal our roads. We take care of the cul-de-sacs. We plant a very expensive tree in some of the cul-de-sacs. It's the community that I think has a better say than PPCA or us at PPAC.
Laura, is there any guidance that we've got from staff on?
Can
the
I
line
chime
to
in?
draw?
This is it's Chelsea.
Hi, Chelsea.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I said this at the landscape work group. The monuments are a district asset. Now, I mean, we're confirming exactly which ones are the districts and which ones are the community association. But bottom line, these are a district asset. We have to maintain them. Now, if the committee so chooses to work in partnership with the HOA of a specific street, that's great. But bottom line is these are GSCDD as of right now. That could change in the future. But as of right now, they are our asset to maintain. What that level of maintenance is can be determined by PPAC, the board, either one.
When you talk about maintaining, we are doing maintenance on these items every year. Every year a Mariscape or a contractor will come and say, we want to do this, pay us the money and we'll take care of it. And that comes out of PPAC funds. I'm talking about renovation of them.
Well, and Mark, if God forbid something happen and there's a crash and one of the monuments gets taken out, the district will have to foot the bill to replace that monument. Now, if PPAC and the landscape work group want to set an expectation of the standard level of service, which may be XYZ plantings and paintings once a year, and then anything above and beyond that can come from the HOA or the residents of that community. That I think would be a good starting discussion. But bottom line is they are district assets that we have to maintain in some form or fashion of again, whatever that level is.
And again, I would say we are maintaining them. I'm talking now about renovating them, not maintaining. No, it's not.
No, they're not.
No, it's not.
That's not.
You can trim
Mark
a
is correct.
bush forever. And you can say you maintained it. Well, but that bush may look so ugly, you never want to see it again. So there's the difference between maintaining.
I think what Chelsea is suggesting is that we set that there's some standards that are set where you don't really have that right now. This leaves it very open to interpretation. Cause you may have some HOAs that are gonna want like the Taj Mahal for landscaping and other ones just don't care as long as their sign is painted and it looks nice. So I think that if you have this is the level of maintenance, landscaping that the district will do on the district's assets and set that bar, whatever you decide that would be. I mean, we start there and then that's where you get into this, where people want to do more, then that would be up to you if you want to spend money to go above and beyond that.
So are you saying that we should set that bar or will staff set the bar?
I don't think, I think that my request on behalf of staff would be that it comes initially from you and then staff can review it and we can have conversations on it. You guys live there, so it's your community. So I don't feel that, I mean, we'll give input, but I think that the initial recommendation should come from you. Just like when they did it here with the ponds and the other things in the community, it came from the community first. So start
Well,
with your community.
And I think that there's, and I'm assuming, but I would think that there is desire to have some continuity of plantings throughout Pelican on GSCDD assets. And so that's why I think the landscape work group that PPAC has implemented may weigh in on that and say, well, here's our standard level of service. We're going to allow A, B, C plantings. We'll fund for these. We'll fund for the maintenance. We'll fund for the irrigation, and one painting of the monument a year. Whatever that level of service is, that recommendation should really come from PPAC and its subcommittees. And that's why these subcommittees were formed, was to provide input from the community. That's I agree with everything Laura said as well.
So what do you want to tell the HOAs that wish to have funds allocated at this point, which is what has been done in the past?
I think if the PPAC has already made a motion and allocated funds to specific HOAs, we follow through with our word. But I think any new requests coming in, I mean, we have a good, form of a policy that we're looking to move forward. I think it's setting that bar.
I would say any pending requests we would hold until we've come up with those standards, but anything that's already been approved, we would follow through with. Already approved.
You have all the landscaping experts. Can we have them maybe determine what the basics would be that would look nice and that each community can say, we will provide this tree, these many bushes, this for your monument area. This is how much it's going to cost. We will provide that through the landscape. And anything beyond, go to your HOA and say, do we want to enhance this? Do we want to make it better? Do we want to add additional things? We can do that with their budget, but our budget for landscaping is going to be providing this, that it looks updated, it looks clean, it looks neat, but it's minimal. So this is what it is.
Mark, I'm sure you will point this out, but of course, there's a great difference in the sizes
True.
of the cul-de-sacs and.
Mark, speaking to the mic.
You're asking somebody, I don't want it to be me,
Mm-hmm.
come up with 25 different designs with no, that's what we have, that these cul-de-sacs are different sizes, different shapes, monuments, different sizes, different shapes. It's and you want to give them choices, and this is Florida. I mean, I can grow anything down here, and the possibilities are just phenomenal as to what you can offer people.
Now, here's another alternative. PPAC can delegate the oversight of these monuments and how they're landscaped to your landscape work group. And the landscape work group could come up with a plan that, they're gonna do 5 per year and let them design it with input from the communities. That's another alternative. And then the landscape work group could work with our contractor, Ameriscape, and come up with a plan. That's an alternative.
There's a couple of reasons why I struggle with that plan. One, that you say you work with our contractor, Ameriscape, and if you go out for bids, they're not my preferred contractor, quite truthfully, based on cost. So. And it, once again, the amount of time that goes into design a 20-foot circle can be phenomenal when you get a neighborhood's input. Because you're getting 8 people all with their own ideas, and quite truthfully, I don't know who has the time to go through all that. My opinion.
On balance, I would say that it may not be quite so neat, but Mark's idea of letting the communities make their own decisions about this and providing them with a certain amount of funding. You know, otherwise we're gonna get ourselves wound up in, you know, coming out with statements about what kind of plants you
I
have to
agree.
put in.
I agree.
I think it'll just be a terrible mess. I think that the way it's proposed now makes sense. I think, you know,
If you'd like, I can put, it could be put in the policy that it has to be reviewed by the subcommittee. I mean, we can make sure they're not gonna put anything outlandish in there, which I have never seen. I've never been worried about somebody planning something really crazy out there. It just hasn't happened. But if it makes you more comfortable, we'd be happy to review whatever plan they come up with, because they will have a plan, because a contractor has to provide them something in order to be able to bill for it. So,
And that would be my suggestion, if you're gonna go that route, is that it goes to the landscape subcommittee because it's your budget.
and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
If you wanna go that route.
I still want to limit the amount of money. And 2,500 seemed to be what was agreeable to in the past. I still want to be able to allow some of these people that are waiting to do more this year, as opposed to waiting for next year's budget and say, well, next year's budget's already done. So if you ask me now you're going to be into 2024. So my preference, we can add to this policy that the landscaping subcommittee will review all designs before they can be implemented. Everybody's agreeable to that. I would still like to say you're allowed up to $2,500 to accomplish this. Anything above and beyond is on your nickel, your HOA's nickel.
And can I just add to that? I do believe that the physical monument itself, we as a group have a mandate to make sure that they are in good repair. So the fact that Jen is going around and having her staff paint and de-rust them, in my mind, that should be at minimum what we have as a standard practice annually. So is that something? Well, yeah, it gets over, yeah, it's pretty intense. But that, to me, making sure that the curbs around the monuments are in good repair, making sure that the paint and the rust removal is taken care of. The aesthetics of landscaping, I totally get it. I think that what you're proposing is a great idea. Let's go for that. But I think on top of that, we need to have some base repair that Jen and her team take care of.
should be, we're gonna have one thing, we should state all of that in there as to what the care of, how the monuments will be taken care of.
The GSDD,
And you should also mention that the day-to-day landscaping is gonna be handled by the CDD. Is that right? Yeah.
We have been doing the maintenance on
Maintenance.
this. Yes.
so where are we sitting?
So I
Mark, are
suggest,
you looking for funds from us?
I'm looking for
You're looking for money.
20,000.
20,000.
If you can come up with that, just so we can get a backlog moving forward. And appease a lot of the HOAs that are having issues with their monuments, and I believe rightly so.
Yeah, we're behind.
All right, we need a motion to mark 20,000. You want 25?
You want 50? Don't go crazy.
the motion, I'm gonna suggest that the motion will include where the money's gonna come from, because Laura's gonna ask us that next.
Okay, so I'm gonna move that we allocate an additional $20,000 to the landscape subcommittee. With the caveat that the resolution or the guidance gets updated as we've discussed with the monument physicality. I don't know even how you want to say it, the appearance, the appearance, the
Just like
painting.
standards.
Yeah.
that-
The standard, yeah, that's what I'm asking, is that we put it in that resolution or that guidance as well.
I'll second
that-
that motion.
Well, and that the money will come from the unassigned reserves.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Any comments from the audience? Take a vote?
Aye.
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 I do have a question. Who is gonna develop the standards?
All right.
You got your money.
Keith Riddle, Public Works. So I just wanted this standard, just Mark, so you're clear, it's gonna include the color and paint monument, not just landscaping.
Color and painting, the color is already dictated.
Does the HOA have a color palette, or does it have to be
Yeah.
a specific, they have a color, one specific color?
We can just
It
put
should be
as
stated as
the
dictated by the HOA.
Write that in there.
And then another item to look at, and we can work on the landscape subcommittee with you on this, is the irrigation itself. The irrigation is causing a lot of early deterioration on the monuments because of the iron and they're not adjusted correctly, so we'll work on that. Possibly doing a drip system or something like that.
And Ameriscape has been good. If you call them and say there's an irrigation problem, generally very good about getting out there. You're right, a different type of system, maybe more beneficial to save the monument themselves.
I found a product too that takes that rust off.
Mark, before you leave, that 300,000 and so on and so forth, that also incorporated doing something with all the shrubbery along the Pelican Reserve Boulevard. Cause
That-
some of that is really getting bad, and so.
And that's what it was allocated for. But we need to know what we're responsible for before we can proceed with
Yeah,
trying to develop a plan, and until the maps are done. We're Ameriscape saying one thing, we've got a map that says another. I mean,
is there a time limit on that? Because that is really looking bad in certain spots.
it's 2 weeks from now, every time I ask.
Hmm. Yeah, well,
Going on since September.
Yeah,
so how do we kick that in gear?
well, this is.
Laura's working on it.
Chelsea says, Tony said next Friday.
Okay.
Yay.
All right.
I'm just the messenger, just the messenger.
And again, we're anxious to get going forward as
Yeah,
well,
I'm
but
sure you are.
I'm not gonna spend a nickel if it's not something we're supposed to be working on.
We are as well, because we're doing contract negotiate, some of our contracts are coming up with the landscaper, so we need it too in order to look at funding for the next year.
Bill Strico again for the PPCA. I'll just point out that when Tony finishes his study, that just gets us to understanding the current situation. It doesn't get us to a solution. So they still have to decide whether we need to negotiate easements, shift title. You guys will have a question to answer. I mean, who do you want to shift the title to? It's not necessarily to the district. It might be to a third party. There's tax implications for the golf course. This ain't a simple solution.
It starts.
Yes, thank you. It just,
It's our
It-
starting point.
it's the beginning of the very beginning.
Yeah.
If the lower the mic, I'm sure.
Thanks, John. One thing I forgot to say is, and I said it to Phil today, if you've lived here as long as I have, it's like the boulevard. Now, it's not perfect yet, going down further. But the change in the grass on the boulevard, the entrances of the expanded flower beds. So all of you, whoever's involved, thank you, because people are noticing it. It looks like it did when I bought in there, which has been over 8 years ago. My husband told me today, I thought it was 5 years. But anyway, you can see the difference and people are commenting. So thanks.
All right, let's go to item 8, work group updates. And we have very little time, so. Work groups?
Laura, could we go to that, Prado?
Yes.
At the most recent safety and security uh, work group meeting this week, Dave Hamilton came from the
This one?
HOA of Prado and talked to us about a few different locations on the street where they have persistent flooding of the sidewalks. They would like to get our approval for a pilot project. There would be no expense for the district at this time. They would like to cut turf away from the sidewalks, dig down and put paver bricks that would be in different locations, but when the arrow, you can see there's at least an iron gate, a grate on one of them where it's, the sewer connection on the furthest one left. The idea is that they would lower that elevation, try to get drainage from those sidewalks. The HOA is going to pay for the paver bricks. Ameriscapes has agreed to perform the labor. And so they've come to us with a request to approve this as a pilot project to see if it will mitigate what is a kind of a persistent flooding area and subsequently a safety issue for those pedestrians around those sidewalks.
Slippery out.
So you say this is a pilot project? What's the extent of it if this proves successful? What are they going to be
Well,
looking for?
if it proves successful, I can think of at least one area that I walk on that could stand to have this done. Because there was, at this point, they're having issues with this. And I know at one place between Matarita Drive and Salerno, there is a spot that is constantly wet.
Yeah.
And it's only from irrigation now. And so during the rainy season, this happens a lot of places. And the turf is high enough that it holds it back. So,
Yes, Randy, you make a motion to.
so I move that we approve as a pilot project, the change to create some openings and paver brick openings from the sidewalks to the street gutter.
I'd also like to state that if this proves to be unsuccessful, I'd like to have them take care of the removal of it as well.
I think there's a lot of places that we would want to pursue this. Some
No,
of the
I mean,
things that we.
They
need
would have to
look-
take out the bricks if it doesn't work, is what I'm asking. Like, it's one thing to say, I'm gonna do this and then walk away, and if it's not successful, it's,
It wouldn't make it any worse, though.
we don't know. Why it's a pilot.
I think that's certainly something that could be done. This has been projected as a low-cost thing. The paver bricks are inexpensive. $100 goes a long ways. If you were to cut out a 4-foot section of concrete, you might spend $1,500 to do this. So what we're looking at is how do we get, create, mitigate the flooding on some of these spots.
I do
But I don't think
understand
there'd
that.
be any problem with putting turf back in place. If it was an issue. What we may have to look at is that, okay, so now who takes care of black mold on the paver bricks and things like that? There could be some other issues that come up in the future, but.
Second your motion.
Any other comments?
Three go again to the PPCA. I was the president of Prado when this was first noticed. We had the sidewalks examined. And it's actually the grading of the sidewalk that's the problem. They don't drain properly. And at the time, we raised the issue with district staff, with the engineering staff, as to whether or not they were ADA compliant because of the way they sloped, because they flooded. I don't know that that question was ever answered. So I would ask before you go ahead and did this, that we really look into the root cause of the problem, which is the slope of the sidewalks.
I have that before you guys voted. I have that we would have an engineer look at it, and it would be subject to legal review too, because it's changing what's there. We're going from a pervious to an impervious
Super, thank you.
so yeah, I have that. If you want to vote to go ahead, that's fine. We would just need to have Tetra Tech review it and Tony review it to make sure, because if somebody slips on the bricks or something, that's on the district. So we need to make sure that if we need easements or anything like that. So want to make sure we cover all our bases. So we're not saying no, we're just saying, if you want to move ahead, there's a few things that we'll need to do before we can actually move forward.
Okay. Bill, I have a question regarding when you say the slope of the sidewalks. How are you saying it should be engineered?
There are actually standards to how the concrete should slope to drain
Correct.
in relation to the surrounding area. These sidewalks actually slope to drain below the level of the turf. And that's why when you get runoff from the berm towards the sidewalk, it floods the sidewalk. It hits the turf. Turf gets waterlogged, won't accept anymore, and then the sidewalk floods. That whole geometry is bad. I think what the district staff told us when we first asked about it was, yeah, it's bad, but it isn't illegal. I think maybe you just want to take a look at whether or not there's a solution that won't get you in trouble. Because if you put the bricks in, it may not even solve the problem.
And we may create something worse.
Yeah,
And
I'm
that's why we would
especially
have a
worried
review.
that people start looking at that as a way to cut across into the road from the sidewalk, and if it starts getting slippery, you got an issue.
So could we defer this action until we get back?
If
from
you'd like
that?
us to research it and get back to you at the next meeting, we can absolutely do that.
Bob Gephardt, I was in the meeting also that Randy's talking about. The way it was presented, Bill, is that it is where the street drains are curved, so that all the water in the street goes to the grates. And the corresponding sidewalks tilt the same way, so that the water that hits the sidewalk goes towards that same low spot on the sidewalk adjacent to the metal grate. These are not in any place other than where the metal grates are. The problem was, because the sidewalk is pitched a little low, I don't know how much, and the fact that the grass isn't, the grass is a dam. And the whole thought process was remove the grass, put in pavers, and now will all naturally gravity flow to where it's supposed to go to begin with. So I can't see a negative to it, but you never know, but that's why you run a pilot. But
You're not altering the sidewalk here.
not altering the sidewalk at all. The sidewalk is what the sidewalk is. Cutting out the grass that dams it between the sidewalk and the drain. That, the way they explained it to us.
That's exactly right. So no modification to the sidewalk. What you've seen currently, if you've been walking, is that as they rise from tree roots or drop, they'll they take a grinder and try to smooth it off to avoid tripping on it and stuff. But this is a different area.
Well,
So
can we
we'll
ask?
we'll have engineering and staff review and bring it back at your next meeting.
So this isn't the rainy season either, so you shouldn't have a whole lot of problem at this point.
I can tell you, to look at the spot on, by the pond between Matarita Drive and, Salerno on Cypress.
It gets wet.
It's wet almost all the time. I nearly did a split sign. Cause you get mud there.
We need
and if
to do
it's not
something,
dry-
but the question is what?
Any other work group? Do we have any ponds update?
Is Doug on? I didn't.
No, he's not.
I see you on the,
I didn't see him. No, he's not.
I can give a mini update. I mean, we're working on the erosion, the bank erosion project, moving forward with that. We've got aeration is really looking quite good. We just had the vendor come out and do a reassessment on what the optimum number of compressors and aeration points for each pond. They've gone through and they've either shut off compressors, so we've actually reduced down 52 compressors within the community, and I believe it's around 60 some distribution for aeration points. The next step on that project will be to go through and pull up the different diffusers and the ones that are membrane, the newer technology, reuse those. But so from the basis we've got right now, we're expecting that we're gonna have a reduction in our electrical costs, as well as we're gonna end up with a nice stockpile of compressors and things that we're gonna be able to reuse until their lifespan is expired. I think that's about it.
All right. Member items? Any questions? Any comments? Item 10. Let's set a next meeting. Is any issue with the next time?
What's the agenda, not the date? So 3 items that I have based on our discussion today would be that we're gonna come back with the pavers at Matarita 2. Keith and I'll take a look and come back with something. Staff will review the golf cart resolution along with Tony, and I think Mark was gonna do some with the monuments and monument plantings to come. He'll have something to present for standards, and then based on the discussion we just had, staff will review with the engineer and possibly legal, depending to about the pavers on Prado. So I have 4 items for sure. Is there anything else that you'd like to, well, anything else you'd like to have on the next agenda?
And you need the list by,
We need everything no later than the Wednesday, the week before the meeting. So your meeting is the 9th, which means we would have to have everything by the 1st.
so it's like almost 10 days before the meeting.
Yeah, because we need time to
That's
put
what it should
everything
state.
together. It has to be published the Thursday before. So that gives Georgia time to put everything together. If we have questions or need clarification, the earlier the better. And this technically should have gone on the agenda, but we let it walk on. So in the future, like this discussion item should have actually gone in and formally been on the agenda, but we walked it on.
Hi, Jack Pearson, Matarita 2. Laura, on the pavers for Matarita 2, we also requested that they put a 2 on the sign after Matarita.
Got it.
So
Yep.
it'd be 2 sides, so 4. They make it, could be as simple as that.
Okay.
So I don't even think you need to move the Matarita, just put the 2 on the end, but thank you.
Got it. Is there anything else at this time that you'd like to have on the
We're
agenda?
holding the workshop until April, is that right?
Correct.
So-
And I already asked Georgia to pencil it in that you'll have, because we have to publish that as well.
Mhm.
So we have to advertise that the meeting has changed for the workshop. So I asked her to pencil it on the calendar for 1 o'clock for your April meeting. You'd have your workshop from 1 to 2 and then your regular meeting at 2 o'clock.
Mr. Chair, just one thing real quickly. And is it feasible that somebody should be checking with Stony Brook? On the move that they made to become a work group, based versus a committee like us? Is that something that's something that was discussed last meeting? And I don't know if that's something that the PPAC should be considering or not.
I think that was a separate issue at Stony Brook. It's a little different than us.
Well, I guess we don't know, and so I think it might behoove us to find out how it's going for them
Don't-
and what the reasons that
All
they
right,
did
if
that.
I'm under, I think Stony Brook is basically can be like an HOA. Pelican Preserve has a lot of HOAs.
So you're saying it's.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know either. That's why I brought up the question.
Well, the way that their O&M agreement is structured, it's similar to where yours is, where the district, I don't know, allocated is the right word, but the day-to-day operations and oversight of the district's assets inside of Stony Brook to the HOA, like we did here with PPCA. And so Stony Brook felt that they didn't need to, the Stony Brook Advisory Committee no longer needed to exist since everything was gonna be handled by the HOA once they went under this O&M agreement. And so that's when the change happened. So it didn't happen until the O&M agreement went into effect. So the Stony Brook Advisory Committee is now actually officially dissolved, but they're working with the Stony Brook Master Association as advisors to that committee. So it's a little different than what you guys have. They don't have all the extra subcommittees and everything, but they decided that when they put the O and M agreement into effect, that was how they were going to handle it.
How many homes are in Stony Brook?
I don't know off the top of my head, sorry.
So I attended that supervisors meeting, and it seemed that the biggest motivation for that advisory group was to avoid issues with the sunshine law.
Yeah, I'd heard that too.
So essentially, this would be disband this group, give all the responsibility to community association. That's what you're essentially would be asking.
Yeah, I was just curious on how it's operating and whether or not they think it's successful or not successful.
It's very new. They're 2 months. They just started it in January, so I think it's too early to really say. This is really only, they've 30 days they've been doing it, so it's pretty new.
So maybe we give it some time and then recheck it.
Isn't there another issue on a lot of our items have to do with tax dollars?
They're still, it's the
That's
same.
another,
Well, it's the same way they have the Stony Brook Fund there as well. So they have their additional, like you have your assessment that you pay in, their funds are still being used to pay for the district assets inside of Stony Brook. It's just that the day-to-day, it's all going through a reimbursement account now instead of the checks being cut by the district.
Bill Srico, Stony Brook has 878 homes, according to their website, so they're much smaller, obviously. And we have spoken to the president of Stony Brook to find out how it's going. They're happy. Some issues still to work out. Basically, they didn't really do away with the advisory committee, they just moved it.
Right, that's why I said they report to this.
Yeah, so now the advisory committee is a standing committee of the homeowners association. So this wouldn't change, frankly.
Well, yeah, it's just that you wouldn't have your meetings here and you wouldn't report to the Board of Supervisors anymore. You would report to the Community Association. So Stony Brook Advisory Committee does not exist.
So Bill, just out of curiosity, I mean, transparency has always been a hot button for the PPCA.
Sure.
And how would you even envision being able to, I mean, because this at least is transparent. We get to air all of our foibles.
Oh gee, good point. We really haven't talked about it amongst the board, but I'll give you a personal opinion. I wouldn't change anything. I would do it just the way you're doing it now. We just have your meetings in our amphitheater in our theater instead of here.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, go
Ul-
ahead.
Ultimately, it's the Board of Supervisors' final decision because you guys are an advisory committee to the board
Sure.
on behalf of Pelican for all of the GSCDD assets within Pelican. So the board through and similar to what Pelican has, an O&M agreement, had an O&M agreement with the Stony Brook master from 2013. All we did was implement what should have been implemented since 2013. We have an O&M agreement board, the district has an O&M agreement with the community association delegating certain day-to-day operations and oversight of GSCDD assets over there. So if this committee would like to dissolve, similar to like Stony Brook would do, the board would have to have the final approval on that.
Sure. Absolutely, Chelsea. The question was asked, this is a matter of information, what would we do? The only thing I can tell you is what I would recommend to the rest of the board of directors, and that is, don't change anything. Leave it just the way it is. Same people doing the same thing, except you'd beat in our theater.
Well, and we would report then to you guys and then you would funnel through what you want to the Board of Supervisors.
Technically,
Technically.
that's the way the O&M is supposed to work now. We had this part of the conflict between the community association. I know as you put on, I love seeing that line item on your wish list of things to approach. A better working relationship between the community association and the advisory committee. Because right now we've got this legal document subject to a lot of change, a lot of renegotiation. It's got geographic boundaries in it that nobody really understands. Got to be fixed. Tony Perez is beginning to look like my head instead of his. get it done. Would really simplify matters, or it could make it not so simple. It really depends on the goodwill of the people involved in making that kind of change.
Thank you.
I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned at 4:30.
Wow, that's impressive.